Israel. Nighttime. Sometime in the early 1st century. Jesus and his disciples had gathered for their last meal, a Passover Seder in an upper room. The bread was eaten, the wine drunk, songs were sung, and blessings were made. When all was said and done, the blessing was said over the final cup of wine, and it was shared among them and placed on the table. Afterwards, Jesus went to the garden to pray. If you're unfamiliar with the scene, here is how it goes. After Jesus prayed in the garden, Judas, one of the 12, betrayed him to the authorities. He was then arrested, tried by a kangaroo court, beaten, and crucified on a wooden cross. Given the events listed here, it seems a little strange that what has captured the imaginations of so many people for so many centuries is the cup that was left on the table. But that being what it is, we press on. The cup passes out of the biblical narrative after the Passover Seder, and we never hear any more about it. We leave it, as it were, sitting on the table. However, according to legend, one of Jesus' disciples by the name of Joseph of Arimathea did not. He retrieved the cup and for some reason decided to catch Christ's blood in it during the crucifixion. The legend goes on to state that, over time, that cup absorbed the healing power of the blood of Christ, and now gives anyone who drinks from it both healing and eternal youth. In other words, one may live forever after drinking from the cup of Christ. No wonder so many people have searched for it over the years. References to the Grail do not appear in the known historical record until almost 1,200 years after the events in question. The first reference to a Grail of sorts comes from an unfinished romantic work by Chrétien de Troyes in 1190 called Perceval le Cantogal. Now some would insinuate that because the first reference was so far after the events, then the Grail must be entirely fictional. This is not necessarily the case. Though it is hard to believe now, for most of human history the notion of the majority of any given people group being able to read and to write was fantastical. It simply never occurred. It has only been fairly recently in the history of the world that being literate enough to read and to write was the norm for any group of people. Before literacy became the normal way of things, people used what were referred to as oral traditions. These are stories and facts that are set up in certain ways to be able to be remembered easily, and then passed on to the next generation. For example, Lizzie Borden took an axe. Can you finish it? The majority of people can, and if you are one of them, then you know the media hype and sensationalism surrounding the Lizzie Borden trial in the 19th century. This is an example of how an oral tradition works. The words are arranged in such a way so as to make them easy to remember, and to be passed on with ease. In the same way, who's to say that there were no oral traditions concerning the cup of Christ? There is no guarantee that there were, but it's also not a complete dismissal of the possibility. The story written by du Troyes, however, mentions nothing of the Grail's holiness. It may surprise people to hear, as well, that the Grail didn't always take the form of a cup. In fact, the word Grail itself seems to refer to somewhat of a deep dish. Looking through the history, that's not the only discrepancy with what most people think of in reference to the Grail. You'll find that at various times it was thought of as a cup, a stone, and a lineage. Most people seeking the Grail, however, think of it as a cup. Legend has it that Joseph of Arimathea, a disciple of Christ and a member of the council, caught the blood of Christ in his cup during the crucifixion, and healing power was transferred to it. It is not unthinkable, being that shortly before this time a woman with an issue of blood had touched the hem of Christ's robe and been healed. After these events, Joseph made his way to Glastonbury in England, where he buried the Grail. Indeed, the water does run red in that area. However, scientists agree that the red color is made more of iron oxide than it is of blood. Another legend associated with the Grail holds that during the Crusades, between the 11th and the 12th centuries, the Knights Templar, whose normal duties were comprised of protecting people on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, seized the Grail from where it was kept on the Temple Mount and spirited it away to an unknown location, never to be seen again. Another popular legend has to do with a line of men said to have the unique responsibility of guarding the Grail. Supposedly, the last of the bloodline, a man known as the Fisher King, sits in a boat in the water near his castle. He is unable to stand due to wounds in his legs, and so he sits and fishes, awaiting someone to find the Grail and heal him. One last legend I'm going to cover here is one any lover of cinema knows. It is a somewhat combined version of some of the previously mentioned stories, and the story itself has several versions. The Knights of the First Crusade laid siege to ancient Alexandretta and destroyed it. 3 knights of the group decided among themselves to find the Grail and to protect it. Eventually, the 3 set out and found the Grail in the Valley of the Crescent Moon, where they lived for 150 years before 2 of the brothers set out again for England, leaving markers as to where to find the Grail. One brother stayed behind to guard the Grail and still sits today, awaiting anyone who will find its location. So, will we ever find the Grail? It seems doubtful. It was a cup, after all, one of many. Sure, there are plenty of contenders out there, and several tests from the correct time. But why should that make them the one true Grail? How would anyone ever confirm that the lips of Christ were on this particular cup? Maybe the search for the Grail isn't about a cup at all. Maybe it's about something that goes to the deeper nature of man. Maybe it's about something a person knows, but will never be able to put his finger on entirely. Maybe. Just maybe. And so, the search continues.